Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a phenomenal day. We're taking another look here at some important / impressive coins that I feel are going to do very, very well here in the relative near future. So what we're going to cover here today is SEI. We've got a nice rising wedge on the macro, a triangle pattern here for POPCAT. ONDO looking at a double bottom, potential breakout of its horizontal trend line. And of course, we're going to want to check out Tau as well. Bittensor, if I'm saying that correctly, it has a nice head and shoulders pattern here, or inverse head and shoulders. And obviously there's going to be a bonus coin as well here. So if you want to fast forward, feel free to do so, but I would recommend you watch all the way through the whole video because we got some important stuff to cover here. We're going to touch on Bitcoin too, and just know and prefacing that, what happens with Bitcoin will determine the outcome of these altcoins. So we're going to look at that as well as a foundational value, because every single trader has to know what's going on with Bitcoin. You don't just blindly jump into a coin because it's your favorite or you kind of like its logo, right? That's not what we do. Anyways, we're going to start with a crypto market overview, give you some perspective here, and recognize a few other things here. First, starting off with Fear and Greed Index is actually a very good sign, because what's happening with Fear and Greed Index is we are starting to see the price action for Bitcoin going sideways, and the Fear and Greed Index is tapering off. It's kind of like a RSI divergence, bullish divergence, of course, where we start to see that cooling period where everyone soon here is going to be like, wait a minute, 120,000, that's a good value. When recently they felt like it wasn't a very good value, right? So that's kind of what we're looking for there. That is a good sign in the overall sense there. Altcoin season index, also very relevant here, letting us know that we're in really good shape here. We've been maintaining ourselves in the 40 percentile, or the 40s, if you will. And the key takeaway here is that the market cap is going higher. We're seeing 1.53 trillion market cap for altcoins, and that's a very good sign. Majority of the coins we're going to cover here today are in this range here, outperforming Bitcoin, and some are ready to rock and roll, even underperforming Bitcoin, but likely to break out. So those are some good things to kind of understand the starting point here. And what we're also going to do is we're going to reference Bitcoin first, just kind of get some perspective here. There's a lower time frame here, just kind of giving us understanding that we are in a type of horizontal trend, or more importantly, a bullish type of rectangle pattern. The longer we maintain this range, the more likely we are to break to the upside. However, we did just break below our ascending trend line. That's a bit of a macro trend, as well as the fact that we're kind of rejecting out of this point of control. So if Bitcoin does pull back, bear in mind, you maybe want a dollar cost average into the following coins here, just to ensure that you are in better position when you do end up taking your trade. I've averaged into like dog with hat, for example, in the 50-cent range, heavy, and that's now at $1 plus. So feel good about that 200x. Either ways, no matter how you look at it, at this point, what we want to talk about is those coins. So now that we kind of understand the foundation of what's going on, we can kind of recognize where we're at here. So starting with Tau, and these are not in any specific order. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of give you some perspective on the macro. We're going to look at some back-end liquidation data too, to kind of help kind of corroborate the direction that we're heading, if it is heading the right direction. Having said that, inverse head and shoulders seems pretty clear as day here. If we kind of clean up the charts, you can see that type of pattern here. These are, generally speaking, bullish patterns, especially when we break this neckline here at roughly 480. So we're looking for a good solid closure over 480. Between now and then, you could average in, but just know it's generally risky to try to trade into a resistance range, which we do have that above the price. Overall, no matter how you look at it, things are looking pretty solid for this coin. Let's jump into the back-end data here and quickly recognize where we're at here. First of all, open interest here recently, this is last 1 month's worth of open interest. This tells us we have the most amount of positions at 417, 433, and 448. Okay, those are 3 areas of support or resistance, depending on what side of the tracks you're on. The key takeaway is we're working to a nice little triangle pattern here as well, and that's a very good sign on the lower time frames. Just recognize liquidation short delta is high to the downside, and that generally implies favorability for shorts. So people are trying to short this coin more than take a long. All that being said, liquidation heavy pocket at 467. We could see a push to 467 or 500 in the relative near future. So that is Bittensor Tau. Next up is ONDO. This is a coin that's highly requested and or traded in my community. By the way, if you want to become a better trader, cryptocash.tech is a site. Link down below. If you're watching before July 31st, there is a promotion right now. Feel free to consider registering. I offer that once a year, and that's a 50% discount to lock in your rate. All that said though, ONDO, the whole point of me mentioning this is that it's very commonly traded coin. I get a lot of requests in this, so I wanted to make sure to highlight it and recognize we have a pretty solid double bottom. We've also retested our local high here at 110. and rejected off that level to pull back to our more recent high, that previous overextension close at roughly $1. So $1 to 110 is that support range. It's also needs to be construed as a resistance range too, because we are traveling into it, not retesting it from the upside. So that's kind of where we're at there in the overall sense. So once more, average into your position in this range. If we see the 90-cent range again, I'm going to be more than happy to get in because we're still in a nice ascending trend from a macro perspective here as well. We've got a lot of open interest or volume control, if you will, in the range here of roughly 92 to 80 cents, right? Obviously, excluding the all-time starting point there in the low 10 to 20 cent range. But here locally, if we kind of exclude that, you can see 80 to 93. Roughly 80 cents as that heaviest concentration. So if we do see 80 cents again, super awesome consideration for a long. The likelihood of a pivot and a bounce is quite high. Okay, so now that's kind of what we're looking at there. Now, back in data here, I apologize, there is no heat map, unfortunately, loading for this coin. So that is unavailable for the moment, but open interest is going to tell us a lot here. This is kind of the key level supports or resistances. So as we can see, 109, 108 is that heavy resistance above the price, but once more, 98 to 95 cents is that heavy concentration below. So I would recommend and or have some limit orders in the 98 to 95 cent range. That would be optimal. Other than that, same as usual, it's kind of par for the course right now because Bitcoin pulled back recently. A lot of shorts came into the market, a lot of selling pressure. We can see the liquidation delta is high to the downside. So generally speaking, right now at this exact moment, unless there's a short squeeze in the relative near future, we can presume the price may pull back a bit further because the bears are in control. All that said, let's move on to POPCAT, see what's going on with this guy. This is a nice triangle pattern here. When I see a macro triangle, I generally try to buy into it, just based on the simple fact that we're establishing higher lows and lower highs. You generally compress and break out the upside since we've been in this range for so long. Keep in mind, this is the daily time frame. We've been in the roughly 30 some odd cent range for ever since the beginning of the year. All right. So all that being said, we got the most amount of volume at 25 cents. So while it's a little ways away from the current price point, between now and then would be a good DCA consideration, just based on the simple fact that there's a lot of volume below the price. Okay, so it's kind of what we're looking at there. If we do take a look at the back end data, we want to recognize here as well that open interest is super heavy at 30 cents. So we not only have 30 cents, but we also have the 23 cent range. So between 24, let's round up a little bit, 24 to 30 cents, that's going to be a heavy consideration for DCA myself. I'm going to have some limit orders set in those areas. But once more, liquidation delta is quite high to the downside. And if we do take a look at this is liquidation heat map, we can recognize that there's a lot of concentrations here, more above than below, between 40 and 41 cents. So if you're going to be taking some profits here soon, those are good areas to consider taking some profits just based on the fact that we usually see slowing pressure when local highs are retested, and that is essentially what we're looking at there. So POPCAT looks pretty awesome in the overall sense. Another one that I've got my eye on here, we're looking for a breakout of this rising wedge pattern is essentially, this is the falling wedge pattern, I apologize. A falling wedge because it's coming down, and these wedges are funny because the inverse typically applies. When it's falling down, it breaks up. When it's rising, it breaks down. So in this case here, we can see that we are retesting that lower high pattern there. And the interesting thing about this coin, you have to see this here because I watch this coin pretty consistently, it loves to triangle out. So if you look at this here previously, price works its way down, sweeps this previous area of liquidation down below, and then ranks up. Same thing here as well. We see price comes up, sweeps this area of liquidation, ranks up again. Has massive order blocks too here in these areas. Each one of these dips has large order blocks. We also see the same thing here as well, where we've got an overextended recovery as well as a local retest of that bottom. So while it's not perfect and nothing ever truly is in trading, these are typically some very good signs to kind of look out for. So it makes sense for this coin to break out here in the relative near future based on its history. All right. Once more, we take a look at open interest. We can recognize super heavy concentration of volume here at about 29 to 30 cents for this coin. And we also want to recognize too, liquidation short delta. This is what's actually very cool and interesting about this coin. It's approaching break even. Generally speaking, there's a shift in momentum that occurs when that happens, and you see a breakout and a short squeeze when that occurs. Too many shorts are in the market still, or they're closing their position because they're afraid to get stopped out and the price goes higher. Next target here would be roughly 39 cents if you're considering a long position, based on the simple fact that there is open interest and or a volume above the price. Now, when we look at open interest, you kind of zoom out, 38 cents would be that local area. So 38 to 40 cents seems like a sensible location for a profit target if you're going to be trading in that direction, or obviously just understand that the price action is more likely to pull back and or slow down when that exit liquidity occurs in that range. So it's kind of what we're looking at there. I hope this makes sense and I described it correctly. Oh, sorry. Let's still go ahead and jump on over to our last, special nomination. And the reason why this one's special isn't just because as a community, we have taken some nice profits here on our long position, 33% for our long. We took some nice profits on our Bitcoin short, but we look at our Crow long, we got in at 12.7 or 12.7 cents. And our next profit target is at 142, so 14.2. We're coming up on that already. Either way, the whole point of me showing you this here is just based on, this is more of a, this coin has a tendency of being very sporadic, but when it goes up fast and it goes up hard, right? So by the time you watch this video, if it's delayed, perhaps you're watching this later down the road, it may have already pumped and dumped. It has a tendency of doing so. When it hits its highest point, it tends to pull back. I don't think we're at that highest point yet. I feel like we're going to be able to hit at least our local high here, our previous high rather, about 16.5, or possibly even break through the 20-cent range. But that's kind of the short-term goal for this coin. It is a very emotional coin based on its traders. The people that trade this coin are very unique. I've actually had a lot of followers join my community based on this coin back from when things ran really hard in 2021 in November. That was back right here when the price action went upwards of almost 80 cents, actually higher than that if you count the candle wick, almost hit $1. Wouldn't that be nice to hit $1 here soon? There's a possibility of it, but we need Matt Damon to do more commercials for that to happen. All right. Anyways, thanks again so much for watching. Make sure again you join us. Link down below. We do have a Bittensor partnership here too. We just finished our current promotion here. We hit 200 million in volume, which is fantastic. We split a prize pool of 16K. So just use my link below. You'll be eligible for all future trading competitions, and these are things that are available for you as well. Once more, no KYC or VPN required for those guys. They're awesome. Join us on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord if you haven't already. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Have yourself a great rest of your day. Take care.